Guy Deacon, where are you? It looks suitably scenic.
It's scenic, all right. I'm on the beach in a place called Libreville, and a restaurant, a hotel called Hotel Tropicana, which is not a bad spot to be. I'm afraid it's not a very sunny morning here because, amazingly, in Africa they have overcast evening days as well. So you won't get the most beautiful view behind me, but it's not a bad place to be.
Looks great. Now, you last time we spoke, you were in Nigeria. I gather you've had a certain number of adventures and the alarms along the way.
Well, the first thing was getting out of Nigeria proved to be very difficult because, as you may know, the border between Nigeria and Cameroon well, I didn't know this, is actually shut. And so I found myself not being able to get out. And the two problems are on the north is Boko Haram, so the border is shut because of that. And there's a bit of a conflict going on in southwestern Cameroon between the Francophone community and the Anglophone community. It's not just about language, it's about lifestyle and law and education and all that sort of stuff. And they're quite militant as well. So I had to get the consul said, I'm not going to give you one because it's too dangerous. And I thought, oh my God, that's not very good. How am I going to get through here? And eventually I just managed to persuade there was a route through from a place called Gembu to Banyo, but it's a cart track, which is plied by people who move fuel from one country to the other. And that's all with Pinscars and very old Land Rovers. And it's muddy as anything, very slippery and very steep with river crossings and all the rest of it, which is doable. And on that route, first of all, I had an escort to get me to there with a police escort because it was dangerous. And I was being met on the other side by a Cameroonian gendarme escort to take me from there to Banyo. So I was escorted all the way through by armed people, which took a bit of organising, but it was okay.
You army types, you're amazing. You managed to find colleagues all over the world to help.
Well, this particular chap who helped me had been one of my officers when I was commanding Harrogate, and I know his father very, very well. And he runs a security organisation that provides man marking, personal sort of security. So he had access to mobile police and all the rest of it. And it took them a week to get me to the border and then to get back in because the road was so bad. So phenomenal business from him, really kind. And I couldn't have done it without him.
And then you're in Cameroon. You're across the border.
I'm not quite in Cameroon. Before having checked out of Nigeria in this area of no man's land, because the conditions were so bad and I wasn't driving, the clutch went again because it was slipping and sliding in the mud, and the driver, because I was provided with a driver as well, just didn't get it right, and the clutch gave in. So we had to tow the vehicle from there over the border and into Cameroon, and then into Banyo, which is the nearest town where I stayed with the gendarmes. I camped with them. So it was a pretty torrid experience.
You eventually got into Cameroon.
Yeah.
But you needed this is the second new clutch.
Second new clutch, which is going to be brought out by somebody of the British High Commission to Yaoundé. So I then, having been towed to Banyo, which was an experience in itself, I was then put onto a truck, and you'd expect me to say an AA type truck that takes me down the road and all the rest of it. Not a bit of it. It was on a cattle truck, and I drove on. Well, pushed onto the back of that, and we then went down the next bit of the road, which is 150 kilometers of the worst roads, potholes and puddles you can imagine, with the wagon in the back shaking and rocking and rolling, and I was dreading every panel being broken. But in fact, it didn't touch sides at all, and it was fine. But that's partly because the floor of the truck I was on fell through, so the wheels collapsed through the bed of the truck, which needed to be sorted out. It was just a catalogue of sort of chaos. And of course, with Parkinson's, you know what you need to do, but you can't make your point. You can't turn around and say, "Everybody stop, do this, do that," because you haven't got the strength and you haven't got not the willpower, but you haven't got the presence and the authority to tell people to stop doing one thing and do it a different way, because I knew what had to be done to jack the vehicle up and all the rest of it, but they had a habit of not listening, and it was all in French, which is quite difficult as well.
So at what stage did you get your new clutch, or have you got your new clutch?
I've got the new clutch, and that was fitted in Yaoundé, and then I drove off, thankfully, and went down through southern Cameroon, which is beautiful, and into Gabon, which is glorious. And the roads in Gabon are mixed. Some bits are very good and some bits are very bad. And I was going on a very good bit, 150 kilometers of good road. And right in the middle of it, there were two socking great potholes around the corner. And I wasn't going very fast. I promised for everybody I wasn't going very fast. And I whacked into these potholes at about 35 miles an hour and bent one of the suspension shock absorbers. So it looked awful. And these two people stopped by the side of the road and we tried to put it right. We were there till midnight wrestling with this vehicle. And then we eventually got the wheel sort of straight enough to drive on to the nearest mechanic, who promised it would only take 2 hours to put right. Of course, it's taken about a week. And he was meant to move the vehicle down here to meet me down here over last week. And then eventually I was told it would be Sunday. And yesterday it just didn't arrive. And I couldn't ring him because the catalogue of disasters, but I was relying upon other people to do things for me, and the simple message is you must never rely upon anybody to do anything for you, ever, 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 because they don't do what you want them to do, and they don't do it in quite the way you expect. But of course, when you've got Parkinson's, you're entirely reliant upon other people because you simply can't do things yourself. So it's an impossible position I find myself in, but I have to depend upon other people, but I know they won't do it the way I want to do it. So it's very frustrating.
So here we are this morning, and what's the situation?
If you asked me that question last night, I was in despair last night. But eventually, having rung this chap a million times, the line got through to him at about 11 o'clock, and he gabbled away in French. And I think what he said was the vehicle hasn't left yet because he hasn't put it back together again, which is fine because it means at least I know where it is and I know it's reasonably secure, rather than stuck on the road between there and here, which is 150 kilometers of mixed road. So I've got to sort that out today and find out where it is. And I think I know where a spare shock absorber is in the town, because the VW have no presence here at all, which is really frustrating. Lesson number one is don't travel in a VW, travel in Toyota. But I think I know where the part is, and I need to get all that sorted out and make sure that the vehicle is where I think it is before I go off today to a place called Pongara, which is a reserve near here, where I'm going with Rob Hayward, the filmmaker, to go and show a bit of Gabon and me trying to have a nice time. But the fact is my mind is completely absorbed by this blinking issue.
Okay, so that's where we are at in terms of, another vehicle disaster, which we've come to expect. But let's look at the positive side about what you've experienced on this last leg in terms of spreading the word about Parkinson's. What have you done?
Cameroon's been amazing. The British High Commission have been fantastically engaged. And there are two aspects. First of all, the High Commission has been brilliant. And secondly, there's been a fellow called Hilaire Roger, who runs a Parkinson's support group, who's been so diligent in pestering me and making sure I turn up to things and organizing visits to people with Parkinson's and attendance at conferences and goodness knows what. And it's been fantastic. And he's been using me to get access to the media as well. And I suddenly realized that actually as time goes on, I do need help, because there's certainly... Cameroon's had a good ear bending about Parkinson's over the last 10 days or so. The word is getting out. And the great news is it does make a difference. We are starting a conversation. People are talking about it. People are now much more aware than they were before about it. And Hilaire has got more credibility because he's been on television with me and he's been on the newspaper with me and all this sort of stuff. So word is getting out, which is fantastic news.
So you're doing, despite all these adventures and alarms, you're doing the job that you meant to do, which is great. But how are you coping personally? Because I've been thinking about this. You and I both have Parkinson's. You've had it longer than I have, or been diagnosed longer than I have. It's a bit of a mystery between appointments, which may be 9 months difference, about how you manage your medication, because every time you see your consultant, they tweak it one way or the other. Are you tweaking your medication sort of freelance?
No, my medications haven't changed in years. And to be honest, I'm slightly wary about it, because the thing is, I don't know what's good and what's bad, but I know that what I've got kind of works. And I don't want to do anything too much, because I don't want to tip on to one way or the other. And whenever I've been to my consultation in the past, I've always been in a good frame of mind, bizarrely enough. So they turn around and say, "How are you feeling?" I say, "I'm absolutely fine." And they go, "Well, off you go then." And it's really, really unhelpful.
Yeah.
The fact is, though, I know that I'm deteriorating pretty rapidly at the moment. There are things that I simply can't do that I could do 2 years ago, for example. And that's been one of the problems that I thought I'd be able to cope much better than I can, and I can't. So I need to address that issue. I can't hide from it. But I've got a stockpile of pills, and all I can really do is I can increase my dosage from 3 times a day to 4 times a day, possibly even 5 times a day, depending on what's going on.
So what do you do with your medication?
Well, all I can really do is I can increase my daily dosage from 3 times a day to 4 or 5 times a day, because I've been advised that I'm nowhere near my maximum dosage on the 3 a day. And that, but I've got to be careful with that, because I don't want to run out of pills towards the end of my time.
And what are the
You can't get them very easily in this part of the world, and I have to rely upon people.
It is freezing a bit, but we'll just quickly carry on and just describe what medication you're taking. Are you like me on Cinemet or something similar?
Two types of Cinemet. Well, I can't remember what they are. They're too thick. One's a big pill and one's a small pill, and they're a proper pain in the ass to get out those blister packs. You know, you wrestle with those. It's just incredible. Whoever designed them obviously doesn't know about Parkinson's. It's maddening. Completely maddening.
I do my pills for the week at the weekend, and I sit there for half an hour wrestling with those damn blister packs, cursing them. I know exactly what you mean.
It's just incredible. It's almost as if somebody done it as a joke, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, Guy, the line is a bit dodgy, so I think we're going to stop. But good luck. Just briefly tell us where, if you get this damned VW vehicle mended, where's next?
My son is arriving out here on Thursday. With him, I'm going to, once the vehicle is fixed, drive down to Congo, Brazzaville, where he's then going to fly back to UK, having helped me get there. And then it's Congo, DRC, Kinshasa, then Angola. And then I've got to get to Zambia to meet up with my daughter, who's going to be there in September. And I've chance of being there on time of almost 0 at the moment.
Well, good luck. You'll need it, and we're all full of admiration for what you're doing.
Somebody wants my advice on what they should do in what vehicle. My advice is don't bother doing it because it's too bloody difficult.